video is all about the most overpowered Marvel gods. Apart from all the gods that exist here in the MCU, there are also a bunch of superheroes powerful enough to call them puny. So I'm back to remind you why they were special in the first place, starting with Rapu.
Now your meaningless life finally does have a purpose.
We're kicking off things with a god that had barely any screen time, but manages to make it just by virtue of his status. Honestly speaking, there isn't a lot going on for this guy, considering the fact that he was the first god to be butchered by gore. But from what I understand, Rapu was something of a badass, considering he was a sun god. His powers included super strength, super speed, slow aging, and of course, let's not forget the fact that he managed to defeat the wielder of the all-black Necro Sword. After all, the only reason Gore could put a fast one on him was because of the same Necro Sword. Oh yeah, the dude also had a knack for amassing large cults to worship him. I mean, some of Gore's tattoos did look like they were in devotion to the leader he eventually killed. While Rapu might have been shown as a massive prick, we can't deny the fact that he was a powerful deity, and that's what matters at the end of the day.
To eternity.
Yeah, I'm looking at each and every Marvel flick for this list, which is why we've got Dracula in the mix as well. So before you start a war in the comments section, let me clear something up for you. Dracula is the very first vampire to have existed in the Blade franchise. That means bro was the literal originator and creator of the entire vampire race. It's basically the same logic as how Apocalypse was a mutant god by virtue of being the first ever mutant. Alright, moving on to the vampire lord now. Dracula is as overpowered as they come, managing to even give Blade a run for his money. He makes his first appearance in Blade Trinity, although he's been an underlying villain across the first two movies as well. Now, you might not be familiar with him because 2004 was almost 20 years ago, but make no mistake, he was a tough cookie who definitely deserved the title of Vampire Patriarch.
Let the dark magic flow through me one last time.
The trustworthy Heimdall also makes an appearance on this list, and I hope you share the same opinion as me when I say that he deserves some kind of spin-off series or movie. I mean, bro can open portals to different planets with the help of a sword that's probably bigger than his own body. Even though he's always been a side character, Heimdall's had important moments throughout the MCU, especially in Infinity War, where he sacrificed his life to save Hulk so that he can warn the Avengers of what's to come. Not a lot is shown about the powers he possesses, especially if you've read the comics, but super strength, durability, and an acute sense of hearing are more than enough to land him an entry in my list. Also, Idris Elba is pretty much a god amongst the ladies in the real world, so that's an added bonus, right?
Then the universe exploded into existence, and the remnants of these systems were forged into concentrated ingots. Infinity Stone.
Didn't expect to see this on my list now, did ya? Tanalir Tivan, aka the Collector, might not have been worshipped as a god in the MCU, but it is mentioned that he's an elder of the universe. So yeah, that definitely counts for Holy Ascension, and I just want to remind you that being a god doesn't necessarily mean that you have the power to wreck planets and stuff. The main reason why the Collector is here is because of his ability to, collect, if you like. The man owned nowhere till he sold it out to the Guardians and had a collection of extremely valuable and dangerous items, you know, like the freaking Reality Stone. He's also the brother of the Grand Master, who should also be a god technically, but wasn't good enough to make the cut here. Benicio del Toro does look the part while playing this character, although I personally believe he's better suited to be the Collector from that horror franchise.
I present to you Tanalir Tivan, the Collector.
You can't protect any of them.
I know I've only been mentioning gods, but I'm a man of equality, so you're definitely going to see a bunch of girl bosses here too. Well, Angelina Jolie is a goddess in her own right, but in the case of Athena, it also applies to her powers and abilities. Once again, to make things clear for you, the Eternals have literally been the inspiration for Greek gods in the MCU timeline, so it does make sense to classify them as the same. In the case of Athena, she's the inspiration of Athena, who's the goddess of wisdom, warfare, and handicraft. That kind of ties in with Athena's abilities as well. Her fighting skills are super impressive, her weapons managed to get rid of that annoying deviant crow, and she's literally got so much knowledge that it made her go into exile. Athena also gave Icarus a good fight while facing off against him, so better not take her lightly. As you might have already noticed from some of the earlier entries, this list isn't going to cover gods that are inherently good. Enter Namor, the nuisance behind Shuri's growing stress in Wakanda forever. Why is he being classified as a god? Well, for starters, Namor has a loyal following that literally worships him. I mean, the dude has his own holy name, Gurka-Ulkan, meaning the feathered serpent god. That's good enough to gain entry into the TV region's Gates of Paradise, although Namor's actions aren't exactly reflective of such an honor. His powers are truly admirable, as can be seen in his first attack on Wakanda. Bro made M'Baku look like a weakling and went on to wreck the country's best battleships, as if he was just playing around with some toys. I'll admit that Namor doesn't make for a villain with legendary status, but his immense showmanship does earn him my respect.
You shouldn't have killed my mom and squished my Walkman.
Now, this one is a no-brainer. If you're the son of a god and a human, then you're at least half a deity, and that's good enough in my eyes. Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, is one of the most memorable characters in the MCU, and we've all grown to love him despite that one epic mistake that literally cost half of the universe.
No, you didn't!
So he's not shown to be overpowered or anything in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but it's in Volume 2 where we learn about his holy origins. As far as powers are concerned, the only time we get to see them are when he's fighting his dad, Ego, but that one moment was more than enough to gain my stamp of approval. I mean, it takes a special kind of talent to be able to match up to someone who can create and destroy planets over a whim. Yep, Star-Lord might be powerful, but he's still half a god, so a full goddess will always win in my favour. Now, you might be thinking that she never really showcased much of her strength during her time she was alive, and you'd be right about that. However, we mustn't forget all her attempts to maintain peace, not just within Asgard, but also within her own family. And just so you know, she might not have displayed them often, but Frigga has powers like super strength, super speed, durability, and even healing, if you want to consider how badass she is in the comics. Most importantly though, she had the power to tell Thor, go to his room. Tessa Thompson has slowly worked her way up the ranks, and it finally paid off with a role in the MCU, which at the time was a ticket of validation for up-and-coming actors. Valkyrie is shown as a boss girl right from the start, and why shouldn't she be? She rides freaking unicorns, for crying out loud. That's as badass as it gets for a maiden warrior. Valkyrie's pretty strong too. She shares most of the same abilities as Frigga from the earlier entry, but on top of that, she's also a master tactician with crazy combat skills. We saw it firsthand when she handed a whooping to Loki despite his deceptive mind games. Also, I know Gorr got the best of her in Love and Thunder, but Valkyrie did possess Zeus's Thunderbolt for a while, which basically gave her the same abilities that Thor had with Mjolnir.
Get inside!
In a minute!
You know, this guy would have made it to my list simply by virtue of the fact that he's a Ghost Rider villain. However, considering the fact that the dude in question is freaking Mephistopheles, aka Mephisto, it goes without saying that he deserves the respect. Now, he's technically portrayed as the devil, which makes him the god of the underworld, and even though he's a side character in the first Ghost Rider film, his presence sure made an impact. I mean, the man executed the best possible casting choice. He turned Nick Cage into a blazing skull with a leather jacket and fire bike. Mephisto has a lot more presence in Spirit of Vengeance, and even though he's defeated by Johnny Blaze, I want to specify some of the powers he possesses. Super strength, immortality, resurrection, interdimensional travel, mind control, teleportation, and even the ability to warp reality itself. Bro's a walking army all by himself.
But that contract was so powerful. He knew he could never let the devil get his hands on it.
Kind of funny to see a puny god in at number 15, eh? Well, even though Loki keeps getting beaten up in all of his appearances, we can't ignore the fact that he's become a fan favourite despite starting out as a villain.
How do you plead?
Madam, a god doesn't plead.
Plus, if you can get back up after all those poundings, it says a lot about your fighting spirit, doesn't it? The God of Mischief has definitely faced a lot of obstacles and hindrances in the MCU, but he's never given up to them, and that's a commendable trait in itself. No, seriously, I mean, would you have carried on with your ambitions even after getting violated by the Hulk? See, this is why everyone remembers Tom Hiddleston for that one role. I know I've been going on about Loki's endurance, but his trademark move is the ability to manipulate and deceive others. Yeah, he might take the mischief aspect of his title a little bit too seriously, but he's still worth the hype. Man, I can't wait to see what Loki Season 2 is going to bring to the table. After all the praises I just sang about Loki, here's the woman who kept humiliating him in his own show. Yeah, I know I'm only covering the movies in this video, but I just can't resist revisiting that scene. On a serious note though, Lady Sif is a super talented goddess who knows a thing or two about combat. She's Thor's trusted aide for a reason, and it shows whenever we see her in battle. Also, she managed to survive her encounter with Gorr, which is an achievement in itself. Her abilities will include pretty much everything a normal Asgardian is blessed with, such as super strength, speed, and durability, but most importantly, she's got amazing combat skills which make her stand out amongst her peers. I honestly feel that she could have done a lot more with this character, but I suppose it does get tough balancing a roster that includes names like Iron Man, Captain America, and the Hulk. Hey look, a fake Superman makes it to a list of gods. Once again, Icarus might be genetically engineered, but he's also an inspiration behind the Greek mythology of the MCU. Honestly though, if your title is literally eternal, then you should be a god by default. Anyway, if you needed further proof of his holy status, then just check out his impressive range of powers. Bro can fly, fire optical beams with lethal accuracy, whack down deviants with a single punch, and he also has the whole package that comes with being an Eternal. Yeah, sure he overuses his lasers a little bit too much, but that's fine when you're such an overpowered being. I suppose his only weakness was his patience, because he lost the plot after breaking up with Cersei. Like, come on dude, you guys were only together for 5,000 years. You should have at least given it a couple more centuries. You know, it's an epic list if Nicolas Cage can only make it to number 12. I genuinely believe that Johnny Blaze will forever remain his most accurate and relatable character in film history. Well, maybe apart from Eddie in Deadpool.
Well, holla, man, the Joker's wild!
where do I even begin with Ghost Rider? I mean, I already mentioned him in the Mephisto entry, but I don't think words are enough to describe how badass he really is. Whether it's flexing on a fire bike or judging souls for their sins, he's an S-tier entry who makes good on his origin from the Angel of Justice Zarathos. Nick Cage actually took the role so seriously that he literally dressed up an Egyptian god to get into the zone for it. Also, if you have the ability to make the devil suffer in his hometown, then nobody's going to be messing with you.
You have no idea what's possible.
Just beating Ghost Rider by a whisker is the goddess of death, Hela. Being Thor's elder sister does come with its benefits, but to be able to conquer an entire planet in a matter of minutes will easily place you amongst the all-time greats. Apart from her tremendous battle skills, Hela also has the power to generate an unlimited supply of weapons. I don't know about you, but in my books, that's a cheat code. It's not like that's her only strength either. She manages to survive Thor's most powerful lightning blast and got back up as if she faced a minor inconvenience. More than anything else, she's got the flair of a goddess, albeit an evil one. I know she's ridiculously overpowered and stuff, but my main motivation for placing her above a flaming skull was because of Cate Blanchett's epic performance. I definitely sense some Hela vibes in her role as Lydia Tarr as well. Speaking of flaming skulls, here's one that managed to defeat Hela with ease. Surtur totally deserves a place in my top 10 because his true form was terrifying just as much as he was overpowered.
You can't defeat me.
No, I know. But he can.
Seeing him in the first scene of Thor Ragnarok might have thrown everyone off guard because the God of Thunder humiliated him a bit too much for his own liking. Having said that, his reincarnation quickly showed us why the Lord of Muspelheim was no small fry. Fire demons are threatening enough as it is, but Surtur took it to a whole other level. He smacked away the Hulk like a fly, completely disregarded Hela's best effort to stop him, and ended up destroying the whole of Asgard without even flinching. Let's not forget that he's also the subject of a viral meme. That's more than enough to make him a fan favorite. Well, here's a god who was made to look like a walking meme himself. When you take the name Zeus, the images that come to your mind must be of some epic lord who rules over the other entities. You know, like how they showed him in God of War. In Love and Thunder, however, he's some weirdo who roams around in skirts. I know it might seem as if I'm hating on him, but these are all the reasons for why he's not higher on the list. Bro let woke culture destroy his legacy, but still manages to come in at number 9. Of course, he is still super powerful thanks to his Thunderbolt weapon, which ironically caused his own defeat. However, we got to see some more flexing later on when Zeus not only recovered, but also tasked his son, aka freaking Hercules, with killing Thor. I guess that's why they call him the King of the Olympians.
You're next, Northern Son!
Must have been expecting him to show up at some point on this list. So here he is at a very respectable number 8. In terms of popularity though, it makes no guesses to state that Thor is numero uno amongst the gods of the Marvel world on film. There are so many reasons to love him, right from his impeccable physique to his range of powers that only kept growing throughout the entirety of his time in the MCU. Taika Waititi also added a comical element to make Thor more relatable, and it did work in Ragnarok, although I can't say the same for Love and Thunder. Even despite that, Chris Hemsworth has given us so many epic moments as the God of Thunder, and if you've been watching my videos regularly, you'll know exactly which scenes I'm talking about. I'm not sure if we're going to see him again in the MCU, but he's always going to be my favourite on-screen deity for life. Sabanur was mentioned earlier to justify Dracula's inclusion, so it only makes sense for him to be amongst the legends. Now, why exactly did I place him above Thor? Well, that's simply because the dude has no limit. Let me walk you through some of the stuff he did. That too, all in the same movie. Bro managed to awaken the hidden powers of his mutants like Storm and Magneto, who was about to Oppenheimer the whole entire planet into an apocalypse. He was even able to overpower Professor X in his own mind, and also took on an entire army of X-Men while he was doing all of this. Sure, Apocalypse gets blown away by Jean Grey in a matter of seconds. That was just a way for the writers to hype up Dark Phoenix. Yeah, and I know that didn't exactly work the way they wanted it to, but even then, Apocalypse totally did justice to his position as God of the Mutants.
It's over, Charles. You're finished.
Just because you're not a Gen Z name doesn't mean the TV Regent has forgotten you. That's right, the Silver Surfer is an iconic entry, even though he might not be doing the rounds on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter. Sorry, I meant X. I swear that brand overhaul is something even the gods wouldn't be able to comprehend, right? Anyway, look, coming back to the Silver Surfer, he's as powerful as they come because his abilities know no bounds. Mr. Fantastic said it himself, the Silver Surfer can manipulate not just matter, but energy itself. What also helps is his surfboard, which adds a cool vibe to the character, despite the fact that he comes from a traumatic backstory. But yeah, beyond the cosmic spears, phasing, and energy blasts, the Silver Surfer is an elite deity who also managed to survive a battle against freaking Galactus. Officially into my top 5, so you can expect characters that are larger than life from this point forward. Taking that term a little bit too literally is Ego, the living planet. Yep, what we see in the movie is actually a human extension of himself because, you know, moving a whole planet around is probably a little inconvenient, right? He's Star-Lord's dad and lives up to his name because it takes a special kind of narcissist to abandon his own family just to pursue something more exciting. His powers aren't to be messed with because, as I said earlier, bro is a freaking planet. And here we were, getting impressed by Thanos throwing a tiny moon at Iron Man. Jokes aside, Ego might not be superhero material, but can easily defeat a vast majority of them with the strength he possesses. Luckily, Peter Quill came in at the right time to commit patricide.
Stop pretending you aren't what you are! One in billions! Trillions! Even more!
If Thor landed at number 8, his dad obviously has to be a few positions higher. Bro stripped the God of Thunder of his own powers just to flex his position as father. He's referred to as the God of Wisdom, but make no mistake, this man was the protector of the 9 realms and gave Mjolnir to Thor in the first place. He also had the power to banish Hela after realizing that she's got an evil ruler complex. Given his title, you'd naturally assume the dude is old, but damn, he was at least 5,000 years old at the time of his demise. Other powers include stuff like dark magic, enchantment, cosmic force, but most importantly, it's the Odin Force. It's basically the power to do whatever the hell he wants, like what he did to Thor and Hela. I'll confess that it was fun to see Anthony Hopkins in a more relaxed mood during Ragnarok, even though that version of Odin was just another one of Loki's deceptions.
You are unworthy of these realms. You're unworthy of your title. You're unworthy.
Dormammu! I've come to bargain! Dormammu! Dormammu! Dormammu!
When I told you that we're dealing with apex gods, I wasn't joking. Dormammu is an interdimensional entity who not only rules the dark dimension, but also wishes to invade every universe out there. Some might call that overambitious, but if you have a look at what he's capable of, I wouldn't call his goals far-fetched. Wong said it best when he termed Dormammu as a cosmic conqueror and destroyer of worlds. His infinite power and endless hunger for domination eventually brought him to Earth, where Doctor Strange managed to hold him off in a comical sequence, But don't let that get to your head. We all saw the countless number of times Dormammu owned Steven despite his best efforts, and if it wasn't for the Time Stone, who knows what would have happened. My only grievance with the MCU version of this character is that his structural design wasn't what the audience was hoping for. However, he's still as overpowered as they come, so I'm gonna let that one pass.
It is now my world. Take all worlds.
We were too late.
Now, I know the Silver Surfer technically defeated Galactus in the movie, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's more overpowered than him. After all, Galactus was the one who gave him his celestial status, so if you really think about it, he was defeated by his own powers. This is once again a case of the character not being designed the way the audience recognizes him from the comics, but you can't ignore the fact that he eats planets as a hobby. Apart from the obvious planetary scale of destruction he can cause, Galactus is known for his immortality and cosmic energy absorption. I guess that's how he's able to keep a stable stomach even after all those meals, eh? But seriously man, if the MCU ever decides to bring him back to the screen, please give him a more anthropomorphic look.
You have chosen to sacrifice a celestial.
When you've got so many epic gods to compete against, it's hard to choose a single victor. That's why I've chosen the Celestials as a whole to take the top spot today. They're the oldest race in the universe, so it makes sense for them to be the most powerful as well. Like, they're responsible for the Big Bang, which basically created all of life itself, and their prime celestial Arishem created the freaking sun. Now I want to clear a couple of things regarding them. The first one is that I've referred to their movie of origin as the Eternals, but they have made indirect appearances in films like Thor: The Dark World and the Guardians of the Galaxy. Also, Ego is supposed to be a Celestial, as he even claimed it in front of Star-Lord. However, since I'm using this as a group entry, they get a separate spot. See? I do my research. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let's see if you can check out this next video before the countdown ends.